We're not going to focus too much on all the different strategies here, as I already mentioned up front, but really just focusing on those considerations. So Mike, why don't you take us through our process when we're starting to analyze Social Security on behalf of clients.
We've had a lot of conversations over the years. Everybody's situation is very different, but if we were to boil them down to a simple three-pronged framework, we really like to look at lifestyle. Lifestyle meaning really not only your quality of life, this usually boils down to what you're spending today and where you're pulling those funds from.
Right.
And in regards to Social Security, what impact would Social Security have on your retirement spending or lifestyle? If that money is significant, there might be a value to taking it now and prioritizing your lifestyle now. If that Social Security money is not significant to your retirement plan in your early 60s, well then maybe there's the value to maximizing benefit and having it through the rest of your life.
Exactly.
If we look at the next square, it's longevity. Really this means health. This is considerations like family health. Are there any chronic illnesses that you're aware of? Do you have any health concerns of yourself between you and your spouse? And if you're worried about potentially not living another 15, 20, 25 years, and you want to prioritize your lifestyle today because of health considerations, that might lean you towards maximizing benefits now and taking advantage of now. If we look at the final square, legacy, that really comes down to, from your asset base, what do you want to spend first? Your money in your taxable investments or your retirement accounts, or the government's money? And Social Security is a common backfill for, instead of IRA withdrawals or 401k withdrawals or selling your investments, if Social Security can help backfill that, you're able to pass your assets on, but you can't pass Social Security on, as we all know. It's not a legacy asset.
Can't take it with you. When you look at, from a collecting standpoint, there could be, collecting early, collecting at full retirement age, or even waiting till age 70. And any of the financial calculators that you look at today from a statistical standpoint or even monetary standpoint, they're going to tell you to wait, right? But going through the lifestyle, longevity, and legacy, really decides and helps determine when you should really collect. And from our view, waiting until 70 is not always the number one solution there. So let's go through some of those kind of pros and cons around collecting early, full retirement age, or age 70. So we can start at collecting early, which from a number standpoint is it's early at 62, but it doesn't have to be at 62. This is really any time between age 62 and your full retirement age, which is typically 66 and change and 67. Yeah. So why don't you kick it off on, what are some of the pros that we look at there?
As we think about claiming at 62, one reason you might claim at 62 is if current lifestyle is important to you and Social Security is going to help significantly improve or sustain current lifestyle. If you don't have other income sources that you're currently collecting or relying on, maybe the ability to live now and take that trip, or to have the extra benefit now instead of waiting 5-8 years, is going to help you live that sort of lifestyle that you want.
Yeah, it's first understanding that lifestyle, right? And then measuring how much this is going to help support that. And I would say one of the cons of collecting so early is that you're limited on your income that you can earn from wage income or even self-employment income as well. So 62 is pretty early, and a lot of the clients that we work with are still in their wealth accumulation years at that point, and really don't want to step back and just quote unquote retire. Right. So that's a big factor to consider, especially if you're looking to collect before full retirement age. You have to really manage and monitor your earnings potential there.
Yep.
So, awesome. A lot of restrictions there. All right, what else?
So another pro, if you're thinking about collecting early and you think about legacy, and way we like to boil it down is, would you rather spend your money first through your assets, whether they're taxable or in retirement accounts, or spending the government's money first, which in this case we're calling Social Security.
Right.
And there is something to be said about giving out, essentially, if you need income replacement in those first 5 to 10 years of retirement, where is it going to come from? Are you going to spend yours or the government?
So that's a great point. So when you're pulling money out of your retirement account, for example, that can push your taxes even higher versus Social Security, which is taxed a little bit more favorably because all of it's not taxed, depending on where your income tax bracket is at that time. So really assessing that, if that is the case, you really want to start collecting early, what's the trade-offs from a tax standpoint too.
That's good.
All right.
And what about longevity, Neil? Let's say I have chronic health conditions, or quite frankly, I know we can't look into the crystal ball and know when we're going to pass, but if I'm worried about passing early, does that lean towards collecting earlier?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you're married, you're single, those are all factors that would be taken into consideration, but certainly health is a big driver of that too. And if you're terminally ill or if you have a limited lifespan, then those are things that would incentivize you to start collecting early as well. So wrapping up on, early claiming at age 62 or even before full retirement age, what are the typical situations that we see when someone does initiate an early claim?
Yeah. Your typical early claimer profile is someone who either does have a health concern and wants to maximize benefit now, or has a reliance on that Social Security income now to provide for their lifestyle, and they're either not working, don't want to work, or haven't been working for a while. So they're not worried about the other income streams, and they actually want the income replacement to come from the government now. And that person also might be concerned about legacy, where again, you're not able to pass on or transfer Social Security to your heirs,
Right.
but you are able to save, transfer your own assets. So you have that preference to spend the government's first and try to preserve as much legacy as you can for your heirs.
Awesome. Okay. All right. Let's look at collecting at full retirement age. And depending on when you were born, that's going to be at age 66 or even age 67. So what would you say one of the pros of this is?
As you think about maximizing your financial benefit, have a higher probability to maximize your financial benefit over a longer period of time. So you think about certain break-even points.
That is a topic that comes up a lot. And as you're measuring the pros and cons of that, explain what that is and the trade-offs of when you actually collect.
Yeah. So if you think about if the earliest you can claim is 62, if you were to claim at 62, between, call it the next 15 or 20 years, going out to about mid-70s or just the tip of your 80s, you'd have the greatest benefit by claiming early in that time period just because you're getting the money sooner.
Right.
But if you claim full retirement age, it's really in between. It's the best of both worlds. You're not delaying and giving up those first 8 years of income, but you're not also receiving a lower benefit. You're receiving that stable benefit.
Right.
So if you have a probability of living longer into life, again, that's where you have increased probability of higher benefit over that time period.
Right. So a con might be like a longer break-even point. At that time, if you wait till age 66 or 67.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. Cool. All right. What else?
Another con is, again, potentially depleting some of your assets in those first years between 62 and 67.
Right.
If income has gone away and you don't have those other income streams, retirement is going to have to come from somewhere, right? And those living expenses aren't going to stop. So there's the budget and lifestyle considerations if you forego money today for down the road.
Right. Right. And, even going back to that pro of an unlimited earnings, right? As we think about, collecting Social Security and securing that at that point, we see a lot of people do that and just reinvest in it. Then it becomes a personal asset of theirs to make sure that, they're securing as much benefit as they can, while they can. But on the flip side of that, as we know that majority of Social Security is taxed, is that could also push you into a higher tax bracket. So that would be more of a con, if you're collecting and being taxed much greater on these assets versus when you actually stop working and maybe your income profile drops. So those are all things that we take into consideration in assessing the pros and cons versus collecting now or delaying.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
okay. Anything else there?
Again, if you're thinking what sort of individual usually waits until their full retirement age, we see the biggest consideration being there is if you're still working and having that earned income and rolling off your working career in your early 60s, then you're likely going to wait until full retirement age. And if you want a little bit of all of the values, a lifestyle, longevity, and legacy, you're not giving up as much financial benefit. You're betting that you're going to live a little bit longer. You're not as concerned with your legacy and longevity.
Cool. And then let's jump into the final one, delaying claiming until age 70. And this is when your benefit stops increasing. Yep. So we know some of the pros of that would be that you're getting that 8% per year, compounded, growing on your behalf. But at age 70, that stops. So there's no benefit to waiting beyond age 70, which is some conversations we have quite a bit. But what are some other pros to to waiting.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Neil, that 8% each year you delay, you're guaranteed an 8% benefit increase. So if you delay all 3 years, that's a total of a 24% maximum benefit increase. If you're just playing the financial game and you want absolutely maximum benefit, it's a pretty good guaranteed return over 3 years. If you think 24%, depending your view on the markets and what you're invested in, right?
Exactly. And I think another pro would be a larger spousal continuation amount, because when you are married and you both are collecting Social Security at that time, one of you pass away, the surviving spouse will continue to collect the higher of the two going forward. So by delaying to age 70, that's where you're securing a higher benefit amount for the surviving person to continue on. So that's a very common conversation that we have. But again, a lot of that's going to be based on longevity, health, and all those other factors that we've already talked about there. Okay. What are the cons?
I'd say a con is you have to live longer, right? To realize that break-even point.
Yeah, the break-even point is pushed out again, right? So that certainly is a big factor. And if we only knew when we were going to pass away, it would make all of this planning much easier, but we don't. And I think the key thing there is as long as we think we're going to live, we just don't know. And we've seen a lot of situations where clients will delay till age 70 and then unfortunately pass away even 6 months to a year later. So those are all things that we can plan from a financial standpoint and try to maximize those dollars, but can't extend life further than we want there.
Absolutely. And if it helps to conceptualize it more, we usually find, in general, a break-even point of where you realize the benefit of delaying. We usually see that set in at around 82, 83, 84. Yeah. So if right now you're living till 95, you're going to have the best benefit from years 84 to 95, those last 10 years of life, by having delayed, have the maximum benefit, and have that account for higher healthcare costs, semi-private care, whatever it may be at that point. But it's going to help on the backside.
Well, you still have to wait 14 years to realize that benefit, right?
Yep.
So I think that's a big part of the conversation too, is like going back to that lifestyle consideration is like, hey, if you were collecting and it's extra cash flow, what could you be doing with it? Yep. And realizing that benefit now versus waiting until your mid 80s, is a personalized conversation, and gives people to reflect on, when they want to spend that money or have the opportunity to at least spend that money. I'd say another con is that you are collecting a higher dollar amount going forward. But then when required minimum distributions kick in at age 73 or 75, these are all items that add to your total income. So having a higher dollar amount and plus other income streams that you have or required minimum distributions that you're paying taxes on could also push you into a higher tax bracket. So again, understanding taxes today or down the road is something that we dig into and help deliver that personalized conversation.
Find it's more about the value conversation than the financial conversation, and it's getting clients to a point where they're comfortable, God willing, they outlive their longevity expectations, and being comfortable with potentially sacrificing some of the financial benefit because they made the right decision around their values. If that was maximizing lifestyle at the beginning of retirement and getting the money sooner, and really deriving the value and the right decision from that versus a final, just a financial sense.
And I find gratification around being able to show families and individuals the ability to do more today, while they're active, right? Whether it's, in their late 60s or even their early 70s, to do that instead of, waiting to recognize that financial benefit into their 80s. Because we all know that, folks are much more active, in their 60s and 70s, and things do slow down in their 80s. And certainly those are things that we get satisfaction and gratification from to see them living their best life today.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, that does conclude our conversation here today. Certainly this is a personalized conversation around when you should collect Social Security for yourself and even potentially your spouse. But those are all things we're happy to dig into. So if you have questions, reach out to anyone else on the Private Wealth team, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.